Hey fellas, and welcome back to With a Y. Today I have like a fairly relaxed one for y'all compared to some of the ones I've done in the last few days. I've decided to compile all of my most core memories of just pulling my teeth out. If you guys aren't human, this might be new to you, but basically every person is born with generally 2 sets of teeth they'll get throughout their life. They have their first set, which are their baby ones, and then there's like their adult teeth that come in around when puberty starts, and they basically all fall out one by one, and new adult teeth grow in, and you're stuck with those until you die or, you know, lose them. I've always been of the opinion that, like, the third set of teeth should come in around age 70. Like, why doesn't the body just continue to regenerate, man? Like, you've already proven you can make those more than once. Why don't you just do it again, dog? Full disclosure, there are class war undertones to this whole thing because whether you believed in the tooth fairy or not kind of depended on if your parents had excess income to keep the illusion alive, similar to, like, what age you stopped believing in Santa. And I had, like, a pretty privileged background where my parents were able to continue to put little $5 bills under my pillow anytime I had one of my big calcium squares fall out of my mouth. I'm not going to be covering wisdom teeth in this video because that was so far removed from the part of my life that most of these happened in. That might be its own video because I remember it pretty distinctly because I was an adult and it was annoying. The classic one is a door pull. You have like a loose tooth that, you know, it wiggles, and it keeps doing that for a bit. Maybe it slightly gets more loose, but it just won't come out on its own. Or you have an adult or an authority figure or just like a kid who's older than you but still a kid who wants to put you through some pain and does this way too early, where most commonly they'll tie a piece of floss around your tooth and just like secure it with a real nice knot. Then they tie the other end to a doorknob. They basically open the door all the way, have you stand a little bit back, you know, so that the string is at least taut, and then they slam the fucking thing closed and it basically just rips the tooth out its socket. It's a particularly violent way of doing it. I feel like this is mostly used by people who want to take the teeth out too early, because if it needed that much force where you couldn't just like wiggle it into submission on your own, then it probably wasn't ready to come out yet. But you see, I actually had a pretty special case. I'm gonna put a warning on this. It's pretty fucking disgusting. This wasn't like some older kid who had a modicum more power over me, exercising the little control they felt in order to put suffering onto someone more vulnerable than them. I absolutely needed the tooth that I was pulling out gone. For reference, this was like my front tooth. I forget if it was the left or the right. It's not super important on this. But basically, the adult tooth that it was supposed to replace it had fully grown in, almost entirely came in, and that last tooth was refusing to come out. Like, I would wiggle it on my own and get like scared of forcing it because I was like, what if I fuck up my gums? I didn't know what gums were. I just knew I didn't like my flesh peeling open. But an adult in my life got kind of sick of looking at it because, if I'm being honest, it's kind of hard to brush 2 sets of teeth. The back one, the full grown adult tooth, was not getting the care it needed, and the baby tooth that was in the front was basically completely disconnected from like so it wasn't getting like nutrients to self-repair. It was close to rotting. It was pretty fucking disgusting. I didn't take a picture or keep that tooth, so the door pull was pretty much non-negotiable, and when they set it up, I was definitely scared as shit, but they're adults, so I can't exactly stop them if they tell me that this is what they're gonna make me do. Also, they were absolutely right. So when they slammed it, the issue was I didn't get tugged by it. It's not like the tooth stayed in there. The floss just came off the tooth. They didn't secure the knot tight enough, and they had put me through all of that anxiety and buildup for practically nothing. I was sat there going through the buildup of fear, like, before they were gonna do it the one time, and then they're like, we're not stopping until it's out. So they tie it up again. This time they tie it tighter, which does not make me any more comfortable. And thankfully on the second run, like, they slammed it. It did hurt, but like when it pulled out, that tooth actually did come off. It could have gone a lot worse, I think, and I'm honestly not sure that this was the best solution given the circumstances. I think we should have gone to a dentist, but those are expensive in America. Fair enough. This is like the one tooth that I lost that I'm not really mad about never having gotten to recover. We did this outside with like a door that led to a backyard of like a house we were staying at. I think we were on vacation or some shit. It's not super important. But that thing fell through the boards of the floor and ended up below wherever that shit is, and for all I know, it could still be there today. Teeth and bones are like the last thing to decay. It's how they identified Hitler's body. You know, after he had shot his whole family, then topped himself off and they firebombed his bunker, his dental records were apparently how they identified the man. And you know, looking in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't be putting this so much on the adults, because I do remember being pretty inconvenienced by this whole thing. Having to chew at the sides of my mouth when some of those teeth are already starting to loosen up. Like, the front teeth are already grown in. I'm supposed to be able to use these in the meantime while the guys on the edges get their shit together. Chewing with like a defective tooth that wiggles whenever something touches it kind of hurts because it's not coming out. It's just putting pressure on the gums, man. There's really only room for one tooth in a single slot. So I'm sure that I had complained about it pretty regularly, but was not willing to take action into my own hands by pulling it out using my teensy little toddler fingers, or by setting up the floss thing thing myself. You know, it's more likely that I just didn't know how to tie a knot that wasn't shoelaces, bunny ears. So I asked someone with more experience doing this kind of thing if they could help me, and that's probably, the story I'm recounting here is probably a major over-dramatization. They were actually helping me with something I requested help with. Kind of fucked up that this is the main record of that tale that's gonna exist forever. Oh well, no names were named, so they can't be that bad. Most of my teeth either came out on their own and I was like excited because it meant I got $5 more to put in my jar to buy like a game or some shit for my leapfrog. Not my leapfrog, I think it was actually on the DS by now. I'm gonna be honest, my timescale, this whole thing is kind of skewed because, you know, early childhood and into like my teenage years kind of blends together. I don't think I fully formed memory until I was 14. Some people say that's a sign of trauma. I just don't think I was locked in enough, man. It couldn't have been that bad. That said, these things came out mostly on their own and I wasn't really having a problem with getting paid for it and doing no work in the process except, you know, helping push it along. I got scolded for pulling teeth out way too soon sometimes, like to the point where I was going to be waiting for a bit before the adult tooth actually started growing in, and I had made them way more wiggly than they would have been if I'd let them be. I probably could have used those teeth to chew a few more months than I did because I was just so eager to get my payday. And you know, my parents who were, you know, willing to lie to me for so long, I think were using my belief against me because they didn't put money under my pillow sometimes when I ended up doing that, and I can only imagine it was because they didn't want to encourage that behavior, which, like, fair enough, but I was still really miffed at the time. I was kind of pissed though, like, you're telling me there's strings attached to this bullshit? I went through all this tooth losing stuff just to not get paid for it? So yeah, rules and regulations of the Tooth Fairy were something I struggled with and the ethics thereof for a time, so I didn't get $5 for several of my teeth. That said, by the time I was in middle school, and yes, I still believed in the Tooth Fairy in middle school. I'm sorry, I was sheltered, I'm a fucking idiot. Whichever excuse is more entertaining to you, let's go with that one. But even at that time, I was less concerned about what the Tooth Fairy could do for me and more interested in, like, being a little entrepreneur, generating my own wealth so I could buy my own things. I didn't want to be waiting on, like, government handouts from some fucking welfare worker like the goddamn Tooth Fairy. Do I look like a NEET to you? Well, at the time I was. It's called being a fucking 12-year-old. So at some point, my teeth became less of a commodity that I would give to some ethereal being for them to give me a small piece of cash for, and more like just something I was trying to get out of the way. Like, I already know these teeth are gonna go. Most of them are already gone, or the rest are, like, already wiggling. These are just the last hangers-on I gotta worry about, man. And you know, I didn't know that this is what I was doing at the time, but I had a habit of wiggling them to stim. Now that I know what the terms autism and ADHD actually mean, it makes a lot more sense in hindsight, where boredom leads to you messing with things so you can, like, just get a little bit of input. I just need a little more dopamine. Come on, come on. Well, I think the ultimate consequence of this kind of stimming, other than putting my DS stylus in my pee hole, was waiting in Xbox Live lobbies. When I was a kid, I figured I could get a lot done between public matches. You know, there's like a minute between, like, ending a match where you get to see all your rewards and, say, Call of Duty or Halo, and then there's like a 40-second countdown where everybody can vote on the next map and you can, like, edit your classes, that sort of thing. But if I had nothing else to do or I'd already voted, I'm like, what could I get done in the next 60 seconds before I load into the match? The options included trying to jump off the couch and touch the ceiling while the game loaded. I didn't succeed at this until I was like 17. Another one was like sending off a single reply to somebody on Skype I'd forgot I was talking to during the last match, but this was all in public lobbies. What I didn't really account for or have a system built in to, like, keep myself occupied while waiting was private lobbies where the game is not automatically started. The person who is the host needs to press the button to get the ball rolling. At the time, I was really into this game called Halo Reach. I am a big fan of it even to this day. I still play it every now and then. The campaign's absolutely worth a run through today if you haven't touched it. So is the whole original trilogy, really. But what I was also into was Machinima. Not the network that, like, scammed Leafy and just, like, didn't pay all the creators on it for ages. I mean, like, the genre, the format of a game Machinima. If you guys don't know, the most famous example you might know is probably Red vs. Blue, but the general gist is people would, like, go into a game's theater mode and have people act out scenes in, like, a private match, and then they record their friends acting and then, like, edit those together, add voice lines over top, you know, do comedic gags, and then basically string together a narrative or a scene. And this took, like, a lot of exploiting the game. It was actually pretty creative, the workarounds that people found to make visuals within the constraints of their favorite thing instead of just picking up a 3D modeler, because that shit's hard and expensive. Nowadays, you can just get Blender. I remember there was this specific one where somebody had to get off a mongoose and somebody had to get on at the same time so that people from two different teams could ride one mongoose and they could be different color Spartans. The main point being here that every character you saw in these machinimas needed, like, some form of a real actor. Needed a person with a controller, a 360 in the game to act out even, like, background character things if you wanted big battle scenes with a bunch of people in it. And for the scene my friend was trying to make, we needed a full 18-person two-person lobby in order to make it as convincing as possible, which meant trying to wrangle as many people as we could into this one lobby, and unfortunately, I made the mistake of being one of the first to agree. So it was a lot of waiting. Like, I'm talking, I sat there for an hour and occupied myself. I think the most effectively I may ever have. I don't think I've had more patience ever in my life. Not during the SATs, not during like the DMV wait lines, nothing. This was the most disciplined I think I've ever gotten. And the thing that got me through it was the fact that I had 3 just starting to wiggle teeth. And you know, it was already a built-in stim I had to just like wiggle a tooth if I was bored or like just kind of not knowing what I was doing. And I had a long time to do that. So I start wiggling this one tooth. And you know, it's nothing crazy at first. I'm just doing it to like its normal range of motion. But I get a little excited and I decide to see if I can push a little farther. And I can. And now the range of motion is bigger. And I keep wiggling it like that. And I'm like, I wonder if I can push this any farther. Keep in mind, this is all when it was absolutely not ready to come out of my gums yet. I was forcing it into a position it was not yet prepared for. This process continues because nothing is there to stop me. I'm not giving any instructions to fucking get on the game. I'm just sitting there with my dinky little Xbox headset on, waiting for everybody else to get in the lobby. That process continues until eventually I'm just like, fuck it, it's loose enough, and I pull it out because it's not like leaving it in there at this point was gonna do me any good. It would probably just come out when I'm chewing something, and then it might like break. So I pull out the tooth, and I'm like, huh, at least that's something I can consider an accomplishment while I've been waiting this whole time. I would disagree in hindsight. Thing is, I had a few more teeth and an unknown amount of time to kill. So I repeat the process. I find the wiggliest tooth in my mouth and I start wobbling. You know, just kind of do it within its normal range of motion, not forcing it beyond anything too crazy. It's still really unsanitary to be sticking my hands in my mouth like that, but you know, it could be more disgusting. I keep pushing it though. I push it and push it until that tooth comes out too. Now I have 2 gaping holes in my fucking mouth. And at that point, I was like, wow, I have really dug a hole for myself here. Let's go deeper. There was one more tooth in there. It was the tightest, most still firmly in my mouth, not ready to go of any of the teeth I had up to that point. It was very, very early stages. And you know what? I still had time to kill, so I started wobbling that bitch. You push that range of motion. It was like fucking playing a rhythm game, man, and eventually, like, yeah, that one folded too. And that shit hurt. It was absolutely too early, and I, like, fucking felt it. Like, I was, like, little tears around my eyes. I wasn't, like, sobbing because I didn't want my mom to find out that I had been doing this explicitly when she had said, stop fucking messing with them. Minus the fuck, she's a Filipino immigrant. Of course she didn't say that. And it was at that moment when I was in pain just looking at the bloody mess of my teeth that thankfully I didn't get on the carpet, but knew I'd still have to clean up and figure out how to hide these things or just dispose of them if I decided they weren't worth getting money from the tooth fairy for. That was when the game started. And they didn't ask, everybody ready? Everybody ready? Okay. No, they just pressed the fucking start game button. It had been an hour, man, and I was like, well, I guess I gotta just ride the pain out, man. I made a commitment. I did put those teeth under my pillow that night, and when I didn't wake up with $15 more because I hadn't told my parents yet, I was like, damn, Doge must have slashed their funding or some shit, bro. They are just way less efficient than they used to be. I digress. I have a few more stories that are like kind of from my prepubescent or straight up into my adulthood of involving teeth, and those are just genuinely more complicated because you're talking about your last set of teeth. If you guys want a sequel about adulthood tooth stories, let me know in the comments. Let's say 3,000-4,000 likes. Let's see if y'all can hit that shit. That kwytebox email is in the description if you guys want to send me any video topics. Anyways, piss off.